been many people who have brought forward a tremendous amount of information to us about the election. A lot of it is, just people's opinions and thoughts about what had happened. And I intentionally did not come out and make any comments about any of this during the time leading up till now, because I felt that our democracy is important in this province. We need to be able to have confidence in the democratic process. We need to have confidence in the results. We need to have confidence in how business is conducted in this province by governments.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for clicking on this video today. I live in BC. Obviously, I was very, very interested in our recent election, October 19th. The election, the count that never ended. We keep counting. How many ways are we going to count? And we keep counting. We still don't have anything conclusive. So as you might have heard recently, John Rustad has he called for a recount because of the problems that they've been having, particularly at this lodge in Surrey. Now, Surrey, this isn't a care home, as some people were saying. It's actually a treatment lodge for people who have addiction and substance issues. So there's a lot we can discuss with that. It is so bad that even the mainstream news has almost been reporting this accurately. So before I get into bringing my guest, I might just play you this story from Global News, my old place of work here, and let's have a look at what they had to say.
The BC NDP held its one-seat majority after a judicial recount in Surrey-Guildford, where the BC Conservatives now claim 45 dubious votes were cast.
Hi, is Baljeet here?
No, she's not going to talk to nobody, okay?
Okay, we just wanted to ask her about the Conservative allegations.
A licensed addiction and recovery facility home to the main allegation. John Rustad's candidate, who lost the riding by 22 votes, claims 21 mail-in ballot votes cast by residents of Argyll Lodge, which is across the street from a polling station, were influenced by a third party.
We have 3 people who have confirmed from this lodge that they voted in a certain way, as you can see, which was not as per their will.
The BC Conservative Party also noting the manager of Argyll Lodge's apparent $1,400 donation to the BC NDP in 2023.
Are you Baljeet?
I'm Baljeet.
Okay.
Baljeet Kandola later came to the door Friday, but directed questions to Fraser Health, which said voting questions should be directed to Elections BC.
Is it fair to say that you dispute the allegations from the Conservatives?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's no truth to the matter. And because, I'm here, I'm trying to do my job. I have 25 people to take care of.
UBC political science professor Maxwell Cameron says Rustad's allegations don't pass the smell test. This looks more like electoral denialism than defense of democracy.
I'm fully confident that the election was held in accordance with the Election Act, and there's many processes in place to protect election integrity.
The BC Conservatives calling for an independent inquiry. Elections BC says it will conduct its own review. Kristen Robinson, Global News.
Okay, so that's how the mainstream media is portraying this story. They almost got it right in the beginning and then lost us at the end. There's lots to talk about here. The funny thing is, I just have to, that reporter was a friend of mine. We don't talk anymore, obviously, which is so weird for me to watch this stuff still to this day. But let me bring in my guest. Okay, so joining me now is somebody, you'll find him on X. He's quite, he's been following this story very carefully, and he posts about it a lot, and he's a very good follow on X if you kind of want another side of the story. So I'm bringing him in right now. He goes by Remanded. Hello.
Hey, Anita. I actually haven't seen that clip.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, we can get into talking about it. But before we get into it, how would you describe yourself to anybody listening right now? Like, how did you get so interested in following all of this?
On this particular, we were on a stream the day of, and it was like, we were almost about to call it quits. And, it was like the last 50 minutes of the night. Someone mentioned DDoS. There was 5,500 votes that didn't add up on the results page, and that kicked off the basically the last 3 or so months of my life. I'm just average Canadian. Got a family, dogs, house.
Mhm.
It's just I was concerned, and when I see something that doesn't kind of make sense, I put 100% into it, and so I just haven't been able to let it go because I haven't been able to make sense of it. So.
Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, I do have a clip from John Rustad, what he posted. But before I play that, let's just talk a little bit about it. The Argyll Lodge part of it. As you saw in that story, there's an owner. Her name is Baljeet Kandola, and she says the ballots just show up at the place. They just deliver them, and Gary Begg, the NDP guy, he won by just 22 votes. There are apparently 21 residents in the home. And what do you make of this? What have you heard about it? I've heard there's affidavits that have been signed by people there saying, we just had to tick the box they told us to tick, or we would have been thrown out of the house. What do you know about what happened at that lodge?
I mean, my takeaway from what happened with that lodge, without actually being personally involved with it, was the video statements Steve Cooner came out with later, which I posted about as soon as I saw that, and I've used the word infuriated because basically, I came across this stuff 2 months ago, November 10th, tackled this, and if had someone replied, if I had actually been able to get a hold of somebody, then we'd be so much farther ahead. And why it's annoying or why it infuriated me is because there's like these statements the chief electoral officer Anton Bogan made under an advisory back in 2020, stating that they do group orders, they do target communities. And so when you hear the lady's statements, and then Elections BC denial, and then Steve saying, EBC denying the statement saying we don't do group orders or group ballots, and then Steve saying this was illegal, they only do individuals. And then I bring up this committee, the House of Commons Procedures and Affairs, where Anton Bogan was a witness to, stating that they do these group orders. So that right there, boom, contradiction, lie. Look into it, investigate it. What does this mean?
Anton Bogan, he's the head of the BC elections, correct? Yep. So he's saying, no, we don't, and Baljeet Kandola is saying, yes, they do.
Back in 2020, when they were doing all these referendums and policy election policy and election act changes, basically you had the CEO Anton stating in 2020 that they do, and now in 2024 they're saying that they don't, but the manager is saying that they do, and the conservatives, so it's like it's all intertwined.
It's intertwined. Actually, before we go on, I did see what you posted about that, so I'm going to show that to people. But first, let's just maybe, catch people up to speed. Actually, most people who watch me are more up to speed than me. Let's just catch people up to speed on what on that story you're talking about. So I'll just play that for everybody.
The NDP candidate Gary Begg has won the riding of Surrey Guildford. He's won it, though, by 22 votes. It is still a win, though, no matter how narrow that majority might be. That will give the NDP what they need for a majority government.
21 residents of a mental health and addiction recovery home, Argyll Lodge, cast mail-in ballots despite living across the street from a voting station. A third party told residents how to complete their mail-in ballot packages, including who to vote for. In the statement, the resident alleges they were rushed into marking the ballot. I do not know who I have voted for, the statement reads. I marked the ballot where they pointed it, and I was led to believe I had no choice but to mark the ballot. Otherwise, I feared I would be kicked out of the home.
The BC Conservative Party also noting the manager of Argyll Lodge's apparent $1,400 donation to the BC NDP in 2023.
This is the same way our clients have been casting their votes for over the last 30-some years.
NDP donor and facility manager Baljeet Candola told the Vancouver Sun, "Every time there's an election, the commission, they contact us, and they've always delivered their ballots here." Elections BC disputed Candola's statement that mail-in ballots just appear at the lodge, stating voters must individually request ballot packages.
I'm Steve Cooner, Conservative MLA for Richmond-Queensborough and official opposition critic for the Attorney General's Department. Look, this doesn't add up. Election BC doesn't deliver ballots to addictions and recovery facilities. Voters must individually request ballot packages. It's time for the RCMP to get to the bottom of this. We must protect our democracy. We must protect our votes. Justice must be served.
Right? That's just hella weird. Isn't it just hella weird? Like, what do you make of that? Like the forcing people to sign, and the affidavits, and the fact that the voting station was 80 meters away. First of all, people who are in addiction and recovery places, they're not like, "Oh, can I have my mail-in ballot, please?" That's not what's on their mind. So what did you make of all that?
Yeah, I mean that's just like priorities, right? Are you prioritizing your health? People. I see the argument, and I'm pretty good at rebutting my own points a lot of the time. And so I can see people have a right to vote, but then it kind of gets down to like the language and the minutia of at what point are you unable to? What kind of mental health do you have? Where are you in your mental health? And then, is there coercion? Is it, and this looks to be a specific location where these people are, and so now, you kind of see they have a right to vote, but they have a mental health. How do you square those two when you end up putting in a third party as the manager, and then Elections BC sending them, and then the donation? Like, there just ends up being a lot. So
They have the right to vote, obviously, but they could have said, "Hey, it's, there's an election going on. Who wants to go walk across the street and vote?" That you could have done that, and the people that are capable could do it. You would never need a mail-in ballot at that location. And
we'll see it like that.
yeah.
Like it's like there's no, and that's the thing with these elections. You had an option to remove yourself from any malfeasance or question thereof if you just said, "Hey, there's the voting place, walk across the street." You didn't do that, or it sounds like that she allegedly didn't do that. So you've implicated yourself by just not knowing, I guess. I mean, what would you say, that you weren't aware that there was a conflict of interest when you're running one of these facilities? I mean, that's
Yeah. And do you believe people, like staff members, were forcing people to mark ballots? Like, have you heard any more about that?
Yeah, there's been some, I'll say accounts, because I don't think influencers is fair. There are some accounts that have personal recollections or experiences with their grandmothers that we've covered on a couple spaces that said that they were kind of told to mark, NDP, and I think they had dementia. A couple of these cases, they've had dementia, and they weren't really of sound mind, Yeah, so I think that's where they're going to be going with it. There's a lot of work to be done with the testimonies and the affidavits and all that, but there's just a lot.
Do you believe that the Baljeet Candola, do you believe that Baljeet Candola is the same Baljeet Candola that made the donations to the NDP? Because that can be a common name in Sikh culture, Punjab. It can be a common Punjabi name. So it may or may not be her. But if it is her, boy, the optics of that don't look good at all. Making an NDP donation with that name, having boxes of ballots delivered to your facility, and then having people with affidavits that say, "Oh, we were forced to sign." The optics of that don't look good.
Well, I can, for what I went through under, and anybody can do this, it's public information, contributions. I mean, you can, as you're scrolling through it, you can see that there's, there's not not in the sense that there's duplicates, as in they're fake or fraudulent, but there's a lot of people with the same name.
Oh, yeah.
But every contribution. So if that wasn't the person, then Elections BC, because they have the information, I think the party and Elections BC would know the information or address to that contribution. So they would be able to clarify that up. And I mean, I think that was an additional thing that you saw with that changed there was a lot of information changes within the Elections Act, where the CEO had a lot more power in regards to information requests.
So I'm glad that there's an investigation going on, because I think it's Hanveer Singh Randhawa has launched a lawsuit or something, some legal action about this, right?
Yeah, they launched that to the RCMP, I think, yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yeah, they want them to look into it. And what do you make of the numbers? Like Gary Begg won by 22 votes, and there were 21 residents in the home. I mean, come on, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to really look at it. I mean, from if you're one of those capable beings of putting yourself into a non-biased state of mind, he would say, well, that's a little fishy. We want some transparency or clarification on what's going on in this house, because outside of the announcement, did anybody know that this was even happening? And then it just balloons, right? How many lodges are there? How many people own the same lodges? I think I saw something that not to get too into the depth of conspiracy theories, and I'm air quoting, is certain individuals owning X amount of these lodges, So what is there a whole racket on vote harvesting, I guess you would call it?
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it's not just 21, and it's not just one riding. It's not just, and it just goes out of control, right? And then, yeah.
You know what? Oh my gosh, I never really thought of that. I just don't think of stuff like that, but it's it's certainly possible. And the other, maybe, if this is true, this is all alleged, because there has to be an investigation. But if this is true, what is even more disgusting about this is that you're taking advantage of people who are not of sound mind. There's different levels of alcoholism and addiction, right? But if you're quite, if you're taking advantage of vulnerable people to coerce a vote, if this is true, that's really bad.
Yeah. When you open one door, there's always seems to be another one.
Yeah. And okay, and a couple of other things I want to talk to you about. You mentioned, okay, in your opinion, in looking at this election, do you feel like there was too many little not niggly wiggly, I was going to say little things, or too many things that, do you think we should do it all over again? What I'm trying to get at is the DDoS. This is from Ryan Murray's Substack, The Discrepancies of the 2024 BC Election. He says, first, I want to give credit where credit is due. Much of the analysis of the discrepancies of the number of ballots is from ex-user The Remanded. Some issues were raised by viewers watching the results being reported, with many noting high traffic on the Elections BC website or a possible DDoS attack. During this period of high traffic, the total ballot count didn't add up. After comparing screenshots of the website, it became evident that the count was off by about 5,000 votes, which was confirmed by totaling the votes across all 93 ridings. A call was made to Elections BC to inquire about this discrepancy. However, no explanation was provided.
Running across the country, especially in BC. So in BC, we knew that because of political interference with China and India and all this stuff, and the states too, because the Biden administration is involved in interference. We took it upon ourselves to say, you know what, let's monitor the BC websites just to see if there's anything that's going to happen. And sure enough, the minute that we went to the website, we couldn't access it because it was being DDoSed, denial of service attacks. taking the site out. And we posted it on X as it was happening in real time. Okay. And we said to ourselves, maybe someone's trying to hack like the site. And we sourced it from Virginia. That was the thing. We sourced out a connection right from Virginia in the States that was attacking the BC election website during the elections. And the other reason why we started monitoring was because when the election started in BC, there was power outages that were in key locations that could have swayed the decision on seats for the legislature. So we were like, oh, isn't that interesting? Power outages because of rain? Like, it was just little things like that. So we knew right away that there was something going on.
I'm not saying that grandma working the phones is part of this,
That's right.
these issues, know, so disclaim that first. And then, I mean, if I was having a hard time to keep all the discrepancies within like 2 pages, and like once I do my final report on it and we have a team now, which just got bigger, I'll probably end up writing 30 plus pages.
Just one more thing, because I used to work for the news. I've been involved in a lot of elections, but as I could, I've worked as part of the technical crew for a lot of the elections, like either cutting the cameras or timing the show and stuff like that. And one of the things a lot of media companies use to collect information is some software called Bannister Lake. This actually has no audio on it either, but people will recognize this who are watching. Right now there's numbers ticking across the screen, and we're dissolving to graphics of people, with percentages and the writings. Like, this is the software that we use. A lot of people use it. This Bannister Lake, sports teams can use it for their things. You can do polls on it. It's like a very common thing broadcasters use. And we get so I'm going to stop playing it now, but we get all the information from the sources are like Elections BC, and whatever whatever is feeding that software is what the news puts on the air. So again, like you're saying, you're not calling fraud, I'm not calling fraud. We just kind of put on what we're told.
So now you have Elections BC, you have the consortium middle person, and then the consortium gives us all the information to the media. That's right. Yeah, so you got BC election, they give to the consortium then takes that and gives it to all the media outlets, and then the media outlets gives it to the public.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a couple middle people in between there.
I think what people need to realize is it's all machines that are being fed, in a sense. Like, even like Canadian Press it was funded by they got some funding from the Liberal government too, and then they just feed out the information they want you to know. Health Canada feeds out the information they want you to know, and whatever software or whatever thing a certain newsroom is using, that information will get fed to them. And then it, like I was saying, like the AP Wires, Associated Press, that's what we use, affiliated with Canadian Press. And whatever news they want us to report, we just report it. We don't know exactly who and what is feeding all this. Mind you, on a side note, AP, which is what Global used, Associated Press, is owned by Reuters, and Reuters is owned by the Rothschild family. Not that I have anything, just I'm not saying
you're just making the connections. People make their mind up, right?
I'm just making the connections. Whether the connections are good or bad, I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying that's kind of how the chain works. So when the chain wants you to know something in a newsroom, we just report what information is coming. Nobody's sitting there and going, "Oh, this isn't right," or this. We just report things.
There's like 6 agencies that Elections Canada works with to monitor social media posts, of which they came out earlier this year or the end of last year stating I think they put $90 million to put agents into social media platforms to cover election interference or influence.
If these boxes, these ballots, these mail-ins, people blame the weather, and the BC elections had blamed the weather. It was a lot of rain and there were power outages. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things. In your opinion, this will be my final question. Should we do it all over again? And just maybe everybody go to a station, vote on paper? That's it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's so hard to give quick answers because do people have the appetite for it?
I
So
think
then you're actually if they do, then great. If they don't, then you may not get the result you're looking for if you're biased in who you politically back. And then, there's the cost, the funding, how does it get done? Is it going to run into the other election? I don't want to be like, say the word tabulators and be like, oh, people, the tabulators, and it's like, no, what I'm saying is that if there's issues with this one and then we use the same method, how are you expecting the same result? So
exactly. I don't want the same method. Yeah. But but these are all good questions you raise. Like, do we have the appetite? Do we have the funding? I think certain people have the appetite. And if only half of the population of BC votes, fine. That's half. I'll take it. But anyway, Remanded, people can check out your posts on X and they'll get a lot of information. They can look at one side of the story. They can come look at what you say. Anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, with everything that's kind of happening, there was one thing that I found through my AI guy who can basically crunch a lot of information. And this is just food for thought. If you don't think there's anything wrong with, tabulators, the way that things are voting and whatnot, then why are these committees at the federal and provincial election level coming together under the guise of, what is it? Disability, inclusion, and accessibility. And there's this plan, this 2040 plan or agenda, so to speak, and it's on Elections Canada website to basically get rid of paper ballot voting because it's not accessible, it's not inclusive, and it doesn't help those with disability. So people probably never heard that before. So
no,
there's
I
an
haven't.
agenda.
Yeah, come on. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. There's always a way to make paper work. Anyway.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Remanded, thank you so much for all that and for talking to me about this. This is like people are definitely interested in this. So thank you for joining me and maybe we'll talk to you again another time.
Awesome. Thank you. Yep. Take care.
Okay. Take care. Talk to you soon.